And those right, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome. Welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program ASHFORD GARLEY. It's on British Radio Africa. It feels great as always to be back home. And Father God, we just want to give you praise. We want to give you honor. We want to magnify your name. We are grateful to you, Lord. Again, thanks for giving us the strength as always. Some call him the mastermind, the doctor of law, the medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of radio. Just to payege, Zebon Flora, and Jacob, no, Chilaji, Borubla, Palico, your Borusi, Basiyon Pro, Secoria Epelia, Borubla, Palico, your Borusi. Oh man, he doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Africa's media do extraordinaire. As for the giant, the now you know me Galway. Welcome to the show. Miss Christine Bill said King, it's been a long time. Where have you been? Oh man. Look who's back. Where is Lexi Brooks Roberts? Hey, let me begin with Joel Dennis. Welcome, my man. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, everybody. It's been a while.
I know.
How's everybody
doing?
Everyone is fine.
Good.
Happy Memorial Day weekend to everybody.
I know, man.
Same to you, my brother.
Same here.
Okay. Idatus, welcome to the show,
yes,
my
sir.
brother.
Thank you. It's such a joy to be back.
Dr. Fisk, welcome to the show.
Thank you, ASHFORD, for welcoming me, and welcome to the rest of the panelists. Joy, especially to you, Coach Kwewie. That's how you pronounce your name, right? Hello? Your mic is...
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay, super. Okay. Welcome to the show as well. And I want to say hi to our listeners and viewers out there. I hope we can have another explosive edition of ASHFORD GARLEY Live on British Radio. Thank you, Lee.
Okay, Peter is our special guest panelist tonight. The name is Corey. It's a very unusual name, Peter. Tell us about this name and what's the origin of this name?
Yeah, so I'm a raw crime man from Boston District. So that's where the name originates. I don't quite know the meaning of it, but that's just my name. That's what I've known my whole life, and that's all I know. Yes, it's something common from Grand Jita people.
Let's see. Well, I happen to be from Grand Jita as well, but I'm from Kunimo District. Okay. And in Kunimo, we say, I'm Guamanio, but then in Bazon, they would say, I say Remao.
Hey.
What does that mean? I say Remao?
I'm not, that's a great question. So let me answer it like this. I remember back in the 80s, my dad tried to teach us the dialect, right? Mm-hmm. And he didn't do a good enough job. So I've been so far removed. We've been so far removed. So I didn't get a chance to learn. Maybe I'll learn now that I'm an adult. Yeah. But yeah, I haven't gotten a chance to learn the dialect.
Okay, well,
you can tutor me a little bit.
Okay, in Kunama, when we say I'm Guamanio, I mean we didn't forget about you. So in your Bazon another tune that said, "I say Romao." I mean, we didn't
I
forget
said
about you.
Romayo.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hold on. Let me test my crown. I'm Balao.
Oh, the message you beat me. Oh.
Let me test my conga. How you doing?
Other people adopted me, so
And well, gentlemen, welcome to the show. At the weekend, Mr. Cummins named his running mate, and they had a very colorful event in Grand Bassa County. I want to say the big thanks to the organizers and to the membership of the CPP. They did extremely well. I mean, people came out, man, in their numbers from all over. Very impressive, And let us begin with Mr. Curry. You saw the event at the weekend, and what is your take on the event, and what do you make of the ticket going forward?
So thanks for that question. I think it's a great way to start this conversation tonight. I'm extremely excited. So before I talk about the crowd size and the amount of people who were attracted, let's talk about the person who was picked and the strategic importance of that person. Let's look at what she brings to the table. She's a woman, something that Mr. Cummings really want to impress on the nation, the importance of having a woman's voice at the table, especially in leadership position. Not just any woman, an activist. So when you hear her talk, she's not a pacifist. She's not just into politics. She wants to make a point, right? She wants to uplift young people. She wants to be in the forefront. And she's her personality is unlike Mr. Cummings's. She is an extrovert. That's a point that he made. It's very important that we have this person who's extrovert. Okay, that's number one. Her education. She's an Ivy League educated Liberian woman, right? She went to Columbia University, and then she studied corporate law at one of the best HBCUs in the world, Howard University. So when you look at that, her preparation, that is impressive. Not only is that impressive, here's the most impressive thing about it. One of the biggest knock that I have on Joe VP Boycott is the fact that I felt like he betrayed Liberia. Here's why. Forget how many years he served and without any hallmark achievements. When he's accused of 66 bad deals being passed, as he presided over the Senate, those deals passed with him understanding what was coming on the table, what was going to committee, and passing. Either A, he did not care enough to look into what was being passed, or he was not intellectually curious enough to read it. This is a woman who is a policy corporate law wonk. Imagine that woman in the room and someone trying to take advantage of our country. She enjoys going to the depth of paperwork and seeing the legality in what the country or person or the corporation is. That's what she studied. That's her expertise. This woman would have no excuses if something like that was to happen. It just so happened to be this is her expert area. So to me, in the complementary role.
So, Mr. Curry, I get this. She's a very smart woman, astute lawyer. She graduated from the Louis After School of Grand, at top of her class, and listening to her, that she has impacted the citizens of Bassa through of, giving back to the community, both in health and education. What else does she bring to the table? How does she sway voters? How does she do this?
So that's another great question. If you look at how our politics play out in Liberia, whether we like it or not, tribalism plays a big, major role. Okay, so let's look at the political landscape and how she can impact that, and how she can positively impact the landscape. If you look at Nimba County is vote rich. We all know that. However, I'm saying not necessarily this time around. Here's why I say that. The vote from Nimba, because of the concentration of people from Nimba, is going to be so segmented, from Gunglo to even our VP Senate Bearer, me man Musa Beldi is there. Joseph Boyka is going to get some. So is the president, George Weah. So that's going to be segmented into 4 parts, right? Look at the Southeast. That's going to be broken up. But if you look at the Bassa Belt right now, you would clearly see the whole area from Margibi to Buchanan, that whole area right there. There's nobody who's there. I think her presence and what she brings to the table, the excitement she brings, she's going to bring that whole river sets, that whole area. I think she brings that with her. She at least gets their attention. And there is no real competition in that area right now. And if there is any, I think she gets the lion's share of that area. I think that alone, besides her qualification, brings a huge part to the table, unlike anybody else that we would have had. Maybe a Youngblee, but the shortcomings that Youngblee would have, she doesn't have. So I think that was a great pick because of that reason.
Okay, let me go to Idatu's added. Idatu's Peter just came in swinging on your pick for the next president of Liberia, Joseph Boyka. How do you respond?
In as much as I cherish opposition unity, my ANC brothers and sisters, some of them just can't help themselves. But instead of deliberating the issue substantively, they come swinging. But let's be very clear, until you understand the function of the Senate, you will certainly be making statements like those. It's rather unfortunate that the 66 agreements that they're talking about, Alexander Cummings played a major role, along with Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and Charlene Brumskin, who sits on the board. So all of these things are the reality. This guilt by association becomes a problem if you don't understand the intricacies and the complexities of politics. Unfortunately, you heard Honorable Joseph Boyka stated that he could have done more. Unfortunately, considering his stance on discipline and his integrity, he was sidelined when he could have offered more. Precisely why Mr. Cummings do not want to be vice president. But certainly, when you talk about experience and expertise, certainly a ticket of 2 neophyte attempting to lead our country clearly suggests that we are about to potentially experiment, if that is the will of the Liberian people, with 2 individuals that may be considered technocrats but do not have the political wherewithal to lead Liberia, consistent with that of Mr. Jeremiah Cohn and Joseph Boyka. He talks about the hallmark impression on the socioeconomic and political well-being of Liberia. I like to remind my friend and brother that lest he forgets, Joseph Boyka, under his leadership, Liberia became the first chairman of the West African Development Association, WADA, in which we were an iconic representation of the 15-nation state over which Joseph Boyka presided. May I also remind him when he was at LPMC and FERC, Liberia began to export. So please understand these realities are very straightforward and clear concerning his legacy, juxtaposed with 2 individuals who are looking forward to working in government for their experience. So let's be very clear on that. I certainly wouldn't want to engage in these issues of attacking Mr. Cummings. I think he's a very fine gentleman, and the Liberian people will have to decide as to who or not they want to choose. As it stands now, he remains the forerunner in this race, and I can understand why he's often attacked by the ANC brothers and sisters, because I've heard many of their surrogates saying that it's imperative to attack the Honorable Joseph Boyka because getting him from the race gave them an opportunity with George Weah, which is impossible.
Okay, well, Mr. Curry, I'm pretty sure you're taking notes. Let us go to Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, welcome again, Peter, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, welcome. And I think we've had a number of Facebook exchanges on numerous occasions, just as a disclaimer. So, it is in, let me ask this question. Politics is politics, is the art of the possible. Therefore, individuals will do whatever it takes to win, including throwing the kitchen sink. Today in Uganda, I think it was today or yesterday, there was a bill that was signed into law by the president, that's due to be signed into law by Yoweri Museveni, that's going to make gay activity illegal in Uganda, and people will be who will be judged to be gay could go to jail for up to 20 years. Now, I say this, I'm not concerned about Mr. Cummings' personal life, but just the same way how people have had allegations of corruption, Mr. Kuhn, they said that, he into body parts selling and the rest of all these things will come out into, as fair game. So help us understand, because I'm not interested in Mr. Cummings' personal life, but there are concerns, there are cultural issues, genuine cultural concerns among most African countries, that the introduction of gay activity in Africa, as a matter of fact, is going to be serious. It's going to lead to serious negative consequences. And then we've had this situation where Mr. Cummings has been repeatedly accused of having some homosexual life. So I'm not looking at it in terms of his personal life, because that's his personal life, but I'm looking at it in terms of the cultural fears that at some point, if he becomes president, he may want to introduce laws for the legislature to pass that makes it, he could influence the legislature to pass that makes it legal for people to exhibit homosexuality in Liberia. It's important, jobs are important, but the cultural issues are also important. And if they're not addressed, they could be detrimental to him being elected as president. Would you address that?
Thank you. Okay. Joel Dennis.
They Cummings pick this over the weekend. I mean, I personally think Cummings, could be a good president. I don't think he's going to win, but to be fair with you, I think that pick was a bit underwhelming. I mean, Charlene Brumskin, like I said on the show before, Cummings needed to pick an attractive woman because he's not a really attractive candidate, so he needs he needs a lot of help. But I think, going forward though, if she can help energize the youth vote in Liberia, he may have a chance at third place. Okay, at third place, and and the only reason I'm saying I'm putting him in third place, I could put him in second behind Joseph Boyka, because I mean, what I'm hearing, CDC really does not have. I mean, outside of cheating, I don't think CDC has the vote anymore. I mean, from what I'm hearing. But I mean, my question to you though, I don't really, Peter, right, Kwewe, I still have yet to understand what Cummings doctrine is. What exactly is his plan for? I heard him saying, he's going to do something with the taxing at the port, but what is his plan? How does he plan to rejuvenate, or at least, wake up this dead economy? I haven't heard him say anything about these things. And to me, I would like to hear more about policy stuff on how you're going to, change this country around, rather than just, throwing lipstick on a pig and saying, he's a good man, he will make things work. So if you can help me understand some of his doctrine, because I don't know anything about that man.
Well, Peter, just before you come in, I mean, you are a very smart God, and I've been following you, and I respect you. What do you make of this accusation or criticism that you guys always attack people even when they're in no way attacking you people. For example, when Prince Johnson and Jeremiah Cohn were in the news about supporting JMB. Oh, Prince Johnson was this killer, this murderer, and it was all over the place. Even Saturday, according to Prince Johnson, a lecture school was in Buchanan, describing Prince Johnson, how he killed, how he did that, in the order. And before you come in, let us take a listen to Prince Johnson on Sunday at his church.
The one who is a deacon of the ASHFORD Baptist Church. Amen. The one who has nothing to do with gayism. Amen. Hallelujah. Yeah. That is it. There is something happening. Evil is still being perpetrated. When you retire, go and sit down. But the previous leader is still Melvin. Amen. Melvin. Jesus. And they have put together a team right now so that there should be a second round. That team, headed by the gay supporter, will join this current government that has also signed gay rights. Amen. Thereby trying to defeat the rescue train. What do you want to fix? Phase 1, phase 2. Phase 1, support gay rights. He's a gay. Maybe phase 2 is a lesbian. I don't know.
Fixer 1 supports.
And Ashford,
yeah.
Can I come in as a disclaimer? Prior to tonight, I had never seen that video. So my question is not an offshoot from what Prince Johnson said.
Okay.
To make that clear.
Fixer 1 supports gay rights, so he's a gay. Fixer 2, maybe she's a lesbian. I don't know. Quay, Peter?
So let me go in the order in which I wrote down the question. The questions or the concerns. The first thing that I would like to respond to was a statement made by my brother Addy. He alluded to, if I understood the Senate, I would know the role that Mr. Boycott played. And this is a disclaimer that they have made time and time again. So let me please address that first. I think I understand the Senate pretty well. As a matter of fact, I think I understand the structure of our government, our Republican form of government with separation of powers. I think I get that. And here's what I know about the Senate. I know that the Senate is the first branch of government. I know that they are responsible for making laws and policies and overseeing a bunch of functions for the legislature. They also have some functions over the judiciary branch. I know it so much that I studied at the university I went to. So I have a little bit of information on the Senate, and I'm trying to be as humble about that as possible, not to come across as a know-it-all. Okay, so I do understand the functions and roles of the Senate. Here's how I respond to that question, however, though. I think it's an excuse. I think it's a dodge. Here's what I mean by that. When you are in the Senate, represent the executive branch of government with oversight responsibility, serving as the tiebreaker in the Senate, you most certainly cannot be held accountable by any of those senators for any reason whatsoever. To me, it's more incumbent upon you to be a whistleblower. A whistleblower. I cannot wash my neighbor's baby. Now, I'm not even going to bring it to something I'm responsible for. My neighbor's baby crawled into traffic. And I say to myself, that's not my business. Let me let the baby, let the people watching the baby take care of it. What type of human being am I? How would the world look at me if I did that and abdicated that responsibility and say it was not my describe or prescribed responsibility, so therefore I'm going to do nothing about it? Mr. Boycott serving in that role could have come out and could have been, at the very least, a whistleblower. After the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the 20th, the 38th, the 55th. He did nothing. That dodge is embarrassing. He most certainly could have done more, and he chose not to. Not only that, he even sat there and accepted the endorsement of those same very people who are betraying the trust of the Liberian people. That is not okay for anyone to sit on this platform, or any forum, and justify that and use the excuse of that was not his role. that's not his described or prescribed role by the Constitution. It is embarrassing. We shouldn't do that. Second thing, I wanted to talk about political experience. When you talk about political experience, sir, or anyone talks about political experience, what are you saying? The truth of the matter is, what you're saying is this person does not have a bureaucratic managerial experience, not necessarily political experience. Here's why. Politics is simply a people management business. It's a people servant business. So when you're in a bureaucracy, what you're doing is you're managing systems and functions the way they should be. Mr. Cummings has served in the highest level of bureaucratic management, not only in a first world country. He did it in sub-Saharan Africa. He took a first world airplane, car, and drove it on our muddy roads in Africa and won races and came back successfully without crashing. Managerial role, that's what he's done. He understands functions and the importance of that manager. That's what he's done. That's what qualifies him. If you want to say working in Liberian government somehow prepares you to be a president, that my rebuttal to you will be, sir, you don't understand separation of powers. Here's why. You could serve in the legislative branch for 1 billion years. There is no correlation to the job that you will be doing in the executive or in the judiciary. Vice versa. You could serve in the judiciary branch for 1 billion years. Different roles, different function. It does not prepare you. It doesn't get you ready to make executive decisions, tough executive decision. It doesn't prepare you to be an expert in anything that you would need to serve. If there is, please correct me, sir, or anyone. Tell me what things a person would do that would elevate the standard of living in Liberia, create jobs, elevate the education system, fight corruption, that you will learn only in the Liberian government. And I will point to you that there isn't any. When this man was able to he has worked in a functioning bureaucracy. Because he worked in a functioning bureaucracy, he knows what functions is supposed to look like. He knows what productivity is supposed to look like. He knows what accountability is supposed to look like. So I will ask you to please tell me the difference between corporate bureaucratic experience and bureaucratic experience working in a non-for-profit business. Tell me, if I went down the list of what CEOs is supposed to do, or COOs, precisely what a president is supposed to do. Let me move on.
And Peter, we just make your answers real short because
let me try. Okay, I'm gonna do this. The job titles held by Joseph Boyka means absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Here's why, and I'll try to be brief. The jobs that you have, for whatever reasons you acquire those jobs, does not guarantee or says how good you're going to be at, how successful you're going to be at those jobs. Mr. Boyka has nothing of distinction working those jobs. Nothing. So when you talk about LPMC, when you talk about all the sectors that he's worked in, he left with no distinction. If he did, tell him precisely policies that he put in place that came from the top of Mr. Boyka's head that elevated Liberia, not just what job he had.
What's the next question?
Cummings' worldview. So let's start with Mr. Cummings' worldview. Mr. Cummings' worldview is something he has discussed ad nauseum over and over again. Mr. Cummings believes, and I'm so happy that Joel asked this question so we can keep repeating it. Mr. Cummings believes in mercantilism. Simply put, mercantilism is simply the government supporting businesses to function as a business and grow. This is how every country post-World War II was built. Before that, this is how England was built with coal. This is how the United States was built with the Intercontinental Railroad, supporting the telegram, giving land grants to people who wanted to open universities and businesses and tax breaks. It's simply taking government money, supporting that business with expertise that they might need. This is how pharmaceutical companies work. This is why they're able to go to and research drugs, because there's no money in that. The government subsidizes that. So he believes in helping our business people grow. Okay, we can go into more details later on. Let me stop there with that. Two last things. CPP attacking. I don't think CPP attacks. Here's why. Let's start with the ANC. Let's be honest. For over 5 years, we were in a collaboration with the UP party. We have heard over and over again, if we want to be honest, how ANC was a soft party, how Mr. Cummings was soft. The reason for that is because we were not responding to attacks like, oh, Mr. Cummings is gay, Mr. Cummings is a newbie, he's a stranger. That's directly from Mr. Boyka, over and over again. As of recent, when the CPP decided to say it's time to fight back, this is when it became, oh, they all know it all. They fight too much. That's not true. For a long time, UP bear that title. So I believe what they are doing is projecting who they are and how the Liberian people see them onto the rest of people, or who they believe are their real true competition. So I'll stop there.
Do you address fixed question?
Fixed question, which was?
My question was that I'm not asking the question in terms of
the gay thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In Uganda, there's an actual law that bans gay activity. My concerns are that if he doesn't address it, just the same way how we've asked about Joseph Boyka and the pacemaker,
I got the question.
Very hard questions.
I got the question. So first of all, Mr. Cummings is not gay, okay, by any stretch of the imagination. It was a rumor made up by people who were looking to destroy Mr. Cummings because, and here's why. And that question, I'm so happy that you asked. Mr. Cummings is being accused of being a homosexual. Mr. Cummings, the ANC blew that off for a few years. Just blew it off, right? Thought it was nonsense. We're not even going to respond to the question. Okay. But the question that Dr. James is asking, that the fix is asking, was not going away. There was a reason for that. Nobody can come and say, if this man was gay all these years, after 5 years, 6 years, 7 years of digging, get one gay lover of his. You're not going to see one. It's all in the windows, it's all rumors or lies that's been repeated by the same group of people. But the question is, why does it keep coming back? Why? There's a reason for that. There's a reason why the Liberian people are somewhat wary of that. How many other governments have you heard that gay rumor even affected outside of Liberia? We had one, the UP government. The UP government, we know for a fact, were accused of homosexuality and soliciting homosexual sex from our boys who were looking for jobs. That's a fact. That's a fact. That rumor was over and over and over again. So when somebody make up a rumor about a man who's not gay at all, okay, and I don't know what being gay has to do with pedophilia, but we can talk about that another time.
Okay.
When that, let me land on this. When that conversation come in, the Liberian people see the plausibility of that, because what they are saying is we've seen it before. And where have they seen it before? Where does it look familiar? In the UP government. Mr. Cummings is not gay, never have been, never will be, married over 40 years to his wife.
That's who said it.
Well, thank you, Ashford. You ask him, I mean, the panelists asked my friend and brother to tell us about Mr. Cummings, and all I heard, he wants to create a business environment. Unlike Joseph Human Boyka, he has a 5-point plan. It's called arrests: agriculture, roads, education, sanitation, and tourism. Liberia is looking forward to being self-sustained through agriculture. Rice is our staple food. We have a plan for that. Unlike the Cummings scam, they're talking about a bowl of rice. We want Liberians to see that country as a farm where their investment through seeds, their personal investment, where government creates that enabling environment, will give them an opportunity to also harvest that which they have been empowered by government to invest in their own country. We don't want a bowl of rice. It's too small. We want to be a part of cooking the rice and not just being handed to us as government handouts. We want to feel empowered in our own country through agriculture, through personal development of our nation, through quality education. So that's what we're talking about. And we need someone who has that experience to do that. Unfortunately, Liberia is not a place to experiment. Oftentimes he started with criticizing that 66 bogus agreement was started, but he shouldn't forget that it was Alexander Cummings through his partnership with with the former President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf that helped facilitate those governments in which he was serving on the board. And today they argue he was just a financial analyst. Liberians didn't know that he was part of this international arrangement that brought this company that in some way, shape, or form exploited our country. But yet and still, he wants to sit here and portray this mindset that Mr. Cummings is such a clean person. No one when they asked him the question. And he said, I have business investments in Liberia, but I cannot tell you why, because of his connection with Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Unlike that, I absolutely have no business, will never in any way, shape, or form question the personal sexuality of Mr. Cummings. That is beneath me. And that is certainly beneath the Honorable Joseph Boyka. From listening to him in the town hall, he's abstained from personal insults of Mr. Cummings. He wants to put forth a vision that incorporates the dreams and aspirations of Liberians, not this tit for tat politics that do not do anything for us, but rather for the divide us and hopefully give President George Weah the opportunity to sit back while the opposition destroys itself. But the truth of the matter is, I certainly understand why they're attacking Joseph Boyka. They want him to retire because he's certainly the front runner. And I thank God for my cousin Charlene. Hopefully, she will get Mr. Cummings from 7% to 8%.
Fisk.
Do you mind if he answers the Reverend and then I ask him? Otherwise, we may have another. I don't know what you think.
We just go in around the room, and I'm hoping when he comes around, he won't take too much longer time on answering questions.
Okay, so let me ask this question. I listened to you very keenly, and as a trained journalist, I love to do so because you listen. And you listen to some things that sound very incredulous. I say this to say that once upon a time when I was doing my master's, my thesis was actually on Western media use of the third world concept. Because what my premise for doing that is that after the First World War, this whole thing about first world, second world, and third world vanished. In fact, you don't hear about second world. You only hear third world. So I try to understand why is that. And what I got to realize is that Western media have reconstructed that word to describe everything negative about poor countries, most of them in Africa. So when I hear people using that word to describe Africa like you did, then what it tells me is that those individuals are coming with a very narrow perception about how they should look at their fellow individuals, because third world, second world, it means individuals are not intellectually or in other ways compatible, which I don't think it is. So, and the reason why I say this is because for anyone who watched, that was, I think, the first debate in which Mr. Cummings was a part of, Ben and I, you and the rest of them, when Mr. Cummings talked about industries and factories for Liberia, he mentioned Firestone. Despite the fact that Liberia have 48,000 square miles of fertile soil, he mentioned Firestone. And what he talked about at that time was working along with Firestone to create condoms in Liberia. Okay. So, you know, all of the big accolades don't mean anything if at the end of the day you have a very negative perception of the people you have to work with. So help us understand the relationship between your thought process towards these people and how you intend to create the so-called jobs and other things that you mentioned in a way that taps into our local industry versus relying on Firestone. You have 48,000 square miles and you have a bunch of jobless people, third world people, as you call them. So help us understand.
Dennis.
You know, I'm gonna say this before I ask my question. You know, I think Cummings is the most qualified person to be the president of Liberia. I know he's not going to win, but I will say this. I mean, the attacks that is on Cummings, because Cummings have lived out of Liberia for so long. I think we all share that same burden. What if Pastor Addy, Dr. Fisk, what if one of these days we decide we want to run this country? We're going to be attacked in the same vicious way. Me sitting here, it was not by choice that I came here during the war. I was forced. And to this day, I still feel like I'm held hostage in America. So I take my hats off to anybody who wants to go back to Liberia and, you know, help with the progress in the country. So that attack on Cummings, I think, is false. And I think when it comes to Ambassador Boycott, he does deserve to be asked the question. What have you done, sir, for the country? So we all have to ask this country, these questions, because this is our future that these people are playing with. I mean, we are playing fire with our future. I mean, the fact that we even sitting on this show legitimizing this election, which looks like it's going to be, you know, something that's going to have to go to the Supreme Court, and we'll all have to come together at some point around one person other than the CDC people. We still all have to get along and stop fighting each other. Stop talking about, you know, somebody's being gay, because it makes no difference if that person is gay or not. That probably it makes absolutely no difference. I mean, America has a bunch of gay people. This country is one of the greatest country that was ever, you know, built. So, but I want to go back to the question that I asked Coach quickly. You know, because you didn't really, you kind of, I know, you know, he has a doctrine somewhere out there, but I mean, right now in the country, you have the Lebanese people and the Indian people running all the businesses. What is Cummings going to do in his first 100 days to say, listen, this is how I intend to energize this country? Because we who are in America, we want to invest. We want to invest in this country because, to be quite frank, to be honest with you, Liberia is a country. I mean, I look at it like if my mother was like a crackhead, I would still love her. I would still want to see her do better. But I mean, I would be very afraid to leave my wallet around her. I would be very afraid to eat in her house. You know, all those things. And living out of Liberia, when you go back there, right now you're in a state of heightened security alert. You know, you're constantly watching your wallet, watching the food you eat. So all these things, what is Cummings' plan? That's what I want to hear, the bread and butter. Not, he's going to change this tax code, or he's going to, help this businessman. Because quite frankly, the only business people in Liberia right now that are Liberians are the keke drivers. Those are the only self-employed people. The people who selling chicle on the street. So I want to understand what is his plan for at least the first 100 days. Thank you.
Okay, well, Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, can you come on, please? Mr. Cummings has said time after time that he's not gay. He's been married for over 40 years, and I think we should, talk about the issues, talk about how we can develop our country instead of just attacking. Perhaps with some political mishaps when he first entered the race and spoke. In fact, ever since then, people who are supporters of boycott continue to say they made it up, that about Cummings, and I don't know why we're still discussing this. I mean, I don't support gay. I'm not gay. Never been a gay, and of course, if two grown up decided they want to sleep with each other, that what the sin says that their business. As long as you're not bringing that nonsense around me, that's all matters. But I think we should talk about issues affecting our country. George Weah came, and people thought he was going to do well. I mean, the man has mismanaged, and he continues to mismanage the country. And I think we deserve a change that will bring light to Liberia. Those are some of the things we should be talking about. Mr. Corey, you can come in now.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I want to work this backwards, and hopefully I can do a pretty good job at it.
If you can do that in 30 seconds, 30 seconds to each trench.
First, I want to address what Joel said. In law, what Joel just did is called leading. So I'm gonna appreciate you for that. You kind of helped me a little bit to answer this question with let's talk about Cummings' first 100 days. And I think that's very important. When you say the Lebanese and the KK boys is the job reserved for us, the Lebanese are running our economy. I just came from home. Yes, it's true. Foreigners, all the hotels, all the real restaurants, all the supermarkets, Lebanese. Cummings' first 100 days. Mr. Cummings is going to audit the Liberian government to see where the functionality lies, where money is going. And with that money, like I said before, like he said ad nauseum, he's going to empower our Liberian brothers and sisters that own small stores, small businesses, and make sure they're bigger to compete with those people. Only the government can give that type of guarantee and loan the money to those people. They already have the expertise. He's going to help them with the expertise to grow those businesses so that they compete with the businesses you are concerned about. There's a whole plan. I can get that to you. Opposition unity. Brother, there is no such thing as opposition, the opposition. Here's why. We do not have a shared ideology. If we did, this thing wouldn't have broken up. Here's what I mean. If we had a objective competition, whereas whoever trumps that, whoever comes up on top goes, that's what the CPP was supposed to be about, that failed. What we see as opposition, our goal, our objectives for the country, which is lifting from the bottoms up, that's not their goal. So when we said the opposition, there's no such thing. And we are not just interested in replacing George Weah. We are removing George Weah. We're interested in replacing people like George Weah. And that's what we see Mr. Boykas as. Third world talking, we say we call people third world people. I would leave that with the viewers to go back and watch the broadcast. I never said third world people. I would never talk to people like that. I never talked to my people like that. I'm not.
You only said Cummings was in the first world.
Yeah.
So everywhere.
If you give me a chance, I will respond.
By definition, everywhere by definition should be the first world. In other words, people have equal capacities. When you refer to other people as being from first world, what exactly are you saying?
Okay, so give me a chance to respond. So I never call out people third world people. That context is different than saying first world country, talking about the nations. And when we talk about first world, second world, third world, they're just talking about economic and industrial development. As simple as that. So to make it simple for people, when I speak of third world country, I'm talking about emerging democracies, emerging economies, economies that are not yet industrialized. When I say third world, I'm talking about raw material producing countries. So let's clear that up. So your definition of what you're saying third world as being condescending was not what I was getting at. It was in my eye and my education. When I say third world, second world, I'm talking about strictly economic development and social economic development of each of those countries. That's it. Yeah, we talked about the opposition already. You said Cummings insulted Joseph Boycott. I challenge anyone to look for that. That's not true. When Mr. Cummings talked, he always said we, us, we will. He talked about team. He never once disparaged Mr. Boycott. Never. Ever. He didn't call Mr. Boycott a stranger like Mr. Boycott called him. So, again, this projectionist behavior of UP is not okay. The man never did that. You cannot put things on his lap that he never, and then when it's repeated, make it seem like it's true. It is not true. Okay. Lastly, you said Mr. Cummings exploited Liberia because he served on boards and he served as a consultant to Ellen Johnson's relief. Let's talk about him serving on boards. And here's the analogy I use for that. I'm a coach. And if the Nigerian, say I was coaching soccer, if I was a coach for the Nigerian team and Nigeria was playing against Liberia and my mother was the goalkeeper, I would design strategies and plans and schemes to score 100 point on my mother and my country. That's what you're supposed to do in a corporate world. That's what you're supposed to do. So when we here talking about capitalism, that's what you're supposed to do. Do the best for your shareholders and your stockholders. Mr. Cummings was not, as a private citizen, responsible for protecting Liberia against business interests. So when you say, "Oh, he did such a good job," or what he did took away from Liberia, that's what we do in capitalism. Okay, so if it was illegal, if it was unfair in some way, shape, or form, then you have a say. You have something to talk about. He did nothing illegal, and you're not even saying what role Mr. Cummings played because he's on the board means he's hurting Liberia. That's nonsensical. Okay, even if he was, say he was the CEO of those companies, and those companies were to take natural resources out of Liberia, Mr. Cummings is doing the job of a corporate man and his shareholders. That's what you're supposed to do.
Okay, well, just before you come in, I don't want to get in trouble with Mrs. Rabbits. Mrs. Rabbits, hello and welcome to the show.
Good evening, my fellow panelists. Good evening, Mr. Garley. Welcome, Peter. How are you?
Doing well. So good to see you.
Great. Hearing the conversation, though I join in a little later, I say thank you for coming. We appreciate you. And thank you to all of our audience members out there. Mr. Garley, did you want me to ask a question, or just want
you can ask a question. I'm pretty sure you listened to Peter and the rest of the panelists. Yeah.
Well, listening to Peter, I know we're asking him about Mr. Cummings giving 100-day plan. I don't think it's fair that it's Peter that should give that. That should be answering that. We should invite Mr. Cummings. He has his agenda or his VP to see what they have planned. However, I would want to know why is it took so long to pick a vice standard bearer, and the people that are saying Mr. Cummings has been in this race over 5 years, well since 2017. Why did it take him so long to choose a vice standard bearer? Does that mean he's ill prepared?
Okay, thank you. And we'll now go to Idatu Zade. And after that, we'll do our second round of questioning, and then we can wrap this thing up for the rest of the night. Good. Idatu's come in.
Well, thank you, Dr. Fakes, for trying to caution our brother when he used the term third world country. Unfortunately, in international relations, that term is no longer used. It's condescending, derogatory, and we don't use that, whether or not it's It's the economy you're talking about in the context of raw material. Countries are referred to now as developing countries, not third world countries.
Thank you.
They call them developing countries. So I really hope that, and these are some of the issues that people have with Mr. Cummings. And as much as I don't want to go there, unfortunately, is this disconnect. You know, you may be a technocrat, but you also have to have the socio-political skills to navigate your policies. So such terms that you have not even come to understood how it is represented internationally, and therefore the domestic challenge he's having now with being politically marketable is precisely the problems that we're having in the country today. And I certainly do not believe that he's the most qualified person to lead Liberia. He may be, youthful and has a very youthful candidate, but he's certainly not the most qualified person. I hire people, and when I hire people for a job, I look for experience. You may have the same education, but I also want to know whether or not you have specific experience in the clinical expertise I'm looking for. Unfortunately, we don't have that. Someone who has that may have an edge over you. So I just want you to have that resonate, so that in these political exchanges, I certainly, as a Liberian, I don't want my country to be referred to as a third world country. By the way, first world countries were people in the Western nations, and second world countries were then the political Eastern Bloc, and third world countries where Liberia and you and I seem to come from. That was dumped, scholarly speaking. So let's rephrase that thing, and hopefully you can, use the right terminology as far as developing country, but thank you for the humility. So having said that, my question to you is very clear. Would you hire somebody who's never had an experience on a particular job right out of school, or who has a totally different experience in one area, and you want to take that chance with them?
Can I answer that question?
This time around, I will allow Peter to directly answer the question, and then you guys can follow up if you have any question for him. And that to Peter's aid. He wasn't the one that said Cummings was the most qualified. I think it was Joel that said that. So I hope.
Yes, I'm answering Joel. I was answering.
Yeah, but I echo that. I do echo that.
That's what I want to answer him too.
Okay, but then Joel answer that. Then we'll go to Peter to answer that.
Yes, true. Okay, so I guess I'm going to answer that with another question too. Would I hire somebody who had been known as the VP of the company when the company failed? Would I bring that same person back to run that same company? Absolutely not. I believe his record has shown that he wasn't capable. And this was maybe 20 years ago when he was more vibrant, if that's even possible to look at Joe Boyka and say he was vibrant. But today, would I hire somebody who was a co-conspirator to the murder of the Liberian economy? He was there for 12 years. I mean, you can't keep hiding behind this. Oh, he was just in the closet. Ellen never let him out the room. I'm sorry. He was there when the Liberian economy was comatose. So that's my answer to your question.
But Joel, you were asking a question, or you're making a statement. Joseph Boyka was not the president of Liberia on an Ellen.
So why are we making a big deal? Why are we making a big deal?
President Trump was not the president when he served 19 years with Todman.
Okay, so why are we making such a big deal on Jeremiah Kuhn VP pick? Why are we making such a big deal for Charlene Brumskin today? We are trying to tie these people to say there will be some degree of success when they become Boyka's VP, or when Charlene becomes ANC VP. But to say Joseph Boyka had no play in the Liberian economy in the Liberian politics, other than just to sit in the closet and wait for Ellens to work. I mean, we don't need a VP then. What is the purpose of a VP? Why do we need a VP?
Gerald, that is precisely why Cummings doesn't want to be a VP. So you guys can have your cake and eat it too. 1 minute you have this tremendous expectation of a VP, whilst at the same time, Mr. Cummings doesn't want to be a VP because ceremonially the function. And that is why not one vice president in the history of Liberia you can really boast of that has made a tremendous impact on the nation state as vice president. Not Dr. Harry F. Moniba, not Bennett D. Warner, not William R. Talbot, until they took the helm of power. That is the reality.
Okay.
Show me one major vice president in your country's history that has changed the socio-economic and political trajectory of your country. None.
Pastor,
name one.
Pastor, I'll answer this question. Let me. This is the first, and this, I keep telling you on this panel that we're playing with fire. This is the first time in the history of Liberia since William Tubman, since President Tubman, that we may have a peaceful transfer of power. So we are now really trying to mature in our democracy. So even though we haven't had that in the past, does not mean it's not necessary. So during Ellen's time, hold on. During Ellen's time, we had the United Nations in Liberia. We had a functioning democracy. You can't, William Talbot, Tubman, and anybody else, we have never had a functioning democracy until Ellen's presidency. So explain that. You can't compare the past. He was a functioning VP in a functioning democracy during Ellen's time. So I'm not comparing it to nothing else other than his 12 years. That's it.
Let me provide you some education humbly. The budget under Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was $588 million. The billions of dollars that people often calculate. Let's be very clear, my brother. When Ellen took over Liberia, it was a broken down country. Whilst it is true, I am not a fan of Ellen, but she took away a very broken down country. Your budget was $588 million. The rest of the countries was being helped by the international community. We were still doing peacekeeping. Your infrastructure was still damaged. You were not exporting, and that is why they brought in those companies. That's why French did not do the best for Liberia. But the fact remains, why doesn't Mr. Cummings want to be a VP? Because he understands constitutionally that the vice president role is basically ceremonial. And that is why I say until you understand the nature and the complexities of being a vice president and his role in the Senate, you wouldn't be asking him what were their portfolio. The lottery, a group of 72nd, actual Taylor, what is her portfolio now? Unfortunately. So this is the reality, and that is why Mr. Cummings has stated he doesn't want to be a vice president.
Okay,
so we can have it both ways.
Please hold the thoughts. We'll come back to Peter, then Dr. James, but just don't go away. We'll be right back.
G-Grace. ASHFORD GARLEY, Liberia number one, right? Okay.
The phrase, a new sheriff is in town, does not only belong to law enforcement. How about the introduction of Liberia's premier vodka, a quality and customized liquor for all occasions? Try the flavor of your choice. Ham's Vodka, Ham's Honey, Ham's Bitter, and Ham's Original Vodka. Ham's Vodka has no hangover. That's why they say, Papa drink, Mama happy. Ham's Vodka is sold in all stores, shops, supermarkets, and entertainment centers in Liberia. For wholesale, contact Ham's Vodka at 0777 001114, 0777 000 We can also be reached via social media on Facebook and IG at Ham's Vodka or www.hamsvodka.com. In the United States, please contact Ham's North America Incorporated at 610-543-9289, 484-888-1622, 484-755-8411. Ham's Vodka is approved by the U.S. federal government. Ham's Vodka brings out the real man in you.
I tell you, in my blood.
Coach Q, take it away.
Yeah, so let me just jump in real quick. I want to start with Sister Brooks Roberts' question, and she asked why did it take so long? Again, I hate to always be anecdotal, but in this instant, I think it is relevant. If you work in corporate, or if you work like I work in higher education, when they're hiring a coach, they go through a vetting process, and this vetting process is it's a long vetting process. Is a long, arduous process, and many times you're not going to know who they're truly after when they're going after a person to be a head football coach, for an example. So this process is not necessarily a short process, and it doesn't. It's not a knock on Cummings. It's actually a positive about Cummings because he wanted to be thorough in the vetting process. Okay, um, I suspect Charlene was always the target, always. And but he had to do his due diligence to go through all of the names in a very, very meticulous way to find the best fit. And that's what we did. And that's why it took so long. But that's to be expected. Second thing I want to address is here's the thing with UP people that cracks me up. They are very, very good at jargons and names and procedures and systems, right? Not necessarily about with working knowledge, like readily available information, working knowledge on their feet. So when my brother says, Addie says, "Oh, you need to know that they don't use that term anymore. This called emerging economy. They don't call them third world country." Saya, you got it. I explained to you what I meant, in which context I was speaking. Learning the jargons of how countries are called now, that's the least of mine. I don't have brain space for that. So thanks for knowing that. I will gladly take that. It was no condescension intended. So if the experts in that field change terminology, just as in my field of expertise, which is education, there are many things that change all the time. I don't expect you to know that. It's just a term. And I explained to you what it meant. And I told you, hopefully, it was not to be condescending. Second thing, I thought you were going all these president. You didn't get the James S. Payne. If you were going to get the James S. Payne, I would have stood up and clapped because you're an email with this president. Again, just rudimentary regurgitation of information. I don't know how helpful that is. Mr. Boyka had other opportunities, people. He had other opportunities, not just as serving as a VP, or you don't have these executive roles. Yes, he did. You mentioned some of them. The group of 77. Did he serve there with distinction? And I don't want to hear, oh, look at what's Joelle Howard Taylor doing. I'm not here advocating for Joelle Howard Taylor. I didn't say she's a good vice president. Most vice president has a thing, has a pet project they care about, and they go after that. So she's not what I would think the future of Liberia should be. Group of 77. And besides the other two you named, I want to talk about how he was also the Minister of Agriculture reported to Mr. Boycott. Youth and sports in that 12 years reported to Mr. Boycott. So let's forget the other 30-something years that he worked. He had opportunity to show expertise and to show achievement. He did over and over again outside executive roles. Plus, you cannot tell me, okay, let me switch to the next thing. You cannot tell me, or I want you to tell us, the skills and things that the person who's served in government will know that Mr. Cummings wouldn't know. That would be a hindrance to the nation's development. Let me ask again. I want to be as clear as possible. Please list some things that Mr. Boycott would know because he is serving Liberian government that is going to help the Liberian people that Mr. Cummings doesn't know because he hasn't served in government. Okay. And again, when you say serve in government, that term is so broad, it tells me you really don't understand what you're saying because government has different functions. So you say just hire in government is all you need? Okay, tell me how that plays with separation of power. Please explain that to me.
All right.
Hold on. I'm gonna land on this. Okay. Please. Lastly, please tell us some of the things that Mr. Boycott suggested to Ellen economically that she rejected. Not only that, okay. Tell us the same thing about corruption. Some of the things that was offered to Ellen that was rejected. What separates Boycott from Ellen's economic plan? Please explain.
Okay. Well,
Thank you. So, access. Please allow me to respond to that question in 1 minute. Just 1 minute.
30 seconds.
Go ahead. All right. So, first of all, Mr. Cummings is not an agriculturalist. Joseph Boyka is. Joseph Boyka has a business degree. Cummings has a business degree. All right. Cummings has worked in both private and corporate sector. He was, not Cummings, Joseph Boyka. Joseph Boyka. Hold on. Joseph Boyka has 127.33 acre of land in Bowman County doing subsistence existing farming right now. Secondly, Joseph Boyka has worked at the World Bank as an international consultant. So he has international experience. Cummings claims to have he has international experience in business. Joseph Boyka has international experience in business. In fact, his first degree was in business administration from Cottington those days. And graduating from Cottington those days meant quality education compared to what we have now that Mr. Boyka wants to change for the rest of Liberia. Thirdly, full president chose him. Samuel Kayando, Amos Sawyer, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, William R. Talbot. Did they choose him because he didn't have the expertise and the experience to deliver? He sure did. Under Joseph Boyka, we produced more country rice for Liberians to eat. It was bad. I grew up eating country rice.
Mr. Garley,
Mr.
Garley, I don't think this is fair. Mr. Garley, please give me
Peter, we have others that
I got you, but I just want to make this point quickly, please. He did not say what Joseph Boyka would know that comes with it. That's what I asked. But
okay, let me bring in Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, I think the first world, third world thing. We have to understand it within the context of perception. So those are coming to leadership, if they have a perception that those people that they will be governing don't have the same intellectual acumen as themselves, then they look down on them and have no good policies for them. Okay. Nowadays people don't use first world, second world, third world because it's more psychological versus poor, underdeveloped countries, which is more economic. But that's not my question. I think if people are listening to you very clearly and they can go back to the tape, I think you just made news on Bridge Radio tonight. What do I mean by that? You said that there's no such thing as one opposition, which I don't think is the truth, because there's a difference between a political opposition and political job seekers. What do I mean by that? Structurally, it doesn't make sense to say the ANC and Joseph Boyka, Unity Party, all of them will coexist. Structurally, that is impossible. But as far as messaging, okay, around the idea for which you guys were created in the first place, that the country is going bad and there's a need for change, okay, that brings the idea of an opposition to the fore. Because why? All of you were opposing the bad governance. But what you've just said is that the ANC oppose people like Boyka. I'm not a Boyka supporter. Let me just say that first. Okay. But when you say the ANC doesn't support people like Boyka, what it means is that if there's a second round, the ANC could possibly vote anyway. In other words, because the ANC does not subscribe to the policies of Joseph Boyka, it could potentially keep Weah in power for another 12 years. Now, that's breaking news.
And that'll say to me.
Could you help us to understand? Could you clarify for us? Because that's what I heard you say. Thank you.
Yeah, so two things. Let me go fast. First of all, again, I've addressed the third word thing. No one's being condescending. I think you're trying to use that as a political wedge issue, and it's kind of funny. Number two, we are not. There is no such thing as the opposition. I did the air quotation for a reason. We don't share a similar objective and ideology. Removing George Weah is not our objective. Replacing people like George Weah is our objective. We look to lift people from the bottom up. So our worldview cannot, if they're not aligned, how are we supposed to have a clear message? There is no one message. Our message is give us a chance and we will lift Liberian people up from the bottom using American intelligence. And using
why do you want a chance?
Let me land. I did not cut you off.
No, when you spoke with the Reverend, you were very, very specific. You wanted him to be specific. I don't want you to say that we don't have a message. There's a reason why you want to be president. It's because this government is not functional, isn't it? If that's the case, isn't that why Mr. Boakai wants to run to be president? How do you juxtapose that against the notion that you don't have a single message? Help us understand.
I never said we don't have a message. I said we don't share an ideology. We don't share a common objective. Because we don't share a common objective, their objective is removing Weah or replacing Weah. Our objective is replacing anyone like Weah and lifting our people up from the bottom, using government money and giving them expertise just like every other nation, especially post-World War II nations.
Are you saying
you have to allow me to land. You can't keep interrupting me because I allow you to speak and mute myself when you're speaking. So what I'm saying is we have a different worldview of how nations are built. Hopefully that would clear it up. Okay, we have a different worldview, how we see the world and how we think nations should be built. So because we don't have a similar worldview, we can't have a common message. Removing George Weah is not our enemy.
Okay, so you said what you said, and I'm not interrupting because you're repetitive at this point. When Joel spoke, Joel said something very important. He said it's possible Mr. Cummings could come third. Let's set up that hypothetical for 1 second. And there's a situation in October that Mr. Weah and Mr. Boakai become the two persons that emerge to go for runoff. Where does Cummings stand when it comes to that?
Yeah, you are trying to get me to speak in hypothetical. I'm not really good at that. So if Mr. Cummings, how Mr. Cummings is going to vote if there are two people in the race,
the ANC versus your own ideology, how will ANC lean?
So
getting you to do anything you've already not said.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked you, where would you lean? If there's a Weah versus Boakai, where do you stand based on what you said?
Yeah.
That's not hypothetical anymore.
So two things. Is thanks for the correction. There's no ANC on the ballot. It's the CPP.
Correct.
Number one.
Where would CPP lean?
Yeah. Number two. That's a great question. But here's how I answer that question. This is called jiu-jitsu. If CPP and CDC are in the runoff,
you need to
If CPP and CDC is in the runoff, who would you support? Who would Mr. Boakai support? Mr. Cummings has said whoever from this, because it's.
Well, you're just dodging the question, my friend. No, you're dodging the question, and I can't allow that. No, I can't allow you to dodge the question. No, he's dodged the question. He created his own question that he's answering. No,
but maybe that's the way he wants to answer the question.
That was not the question. He told Reverend the same thing. That was not the question. The question is, if you have Weah and Boakai, who would you vote for?
Dr. Fitz, he's clearly telling you that there will be no way that ANC would not be would not be the a win on the first round, or would not be in the runoff. That's what he's telling you.
And,
go ahead, Peter.
And yeah, I'm just saying I don't speak in hypotheticals like that because we don't see the probability of that even happening. But I will be very gracious and give you some whatever time I have left for you to tell me who you will support when the CPP and CDC is in the second round.
But to a point,
I can answer that question.
Mr. Cummings himself has said, if he were not the one chosen, he would support the opposition. He said that in several interviews.
Yeah, he said that over and over again because they're closest to his. That's what happens in politics. They're closest to his ideology. But then I'm giving this brother a chance to please tell me who he would support between CPP and CDC, which is inevitable.
Okay, I want you guys to please hold your thoughts as we just take a few calls.
Oh, brother, you gotta let him answer that question.
Oh, you want me to answer the question? Actually, I gave you 1 second to answer the question.
Go ahead and answer the question.
Okay, the best way I can answer the question is this way. You know, it is unfortunate that, you know, you want to eat your cake and have it. You want to say that you don't have a worldview, you don't have a political conviction, but at the same time, too, you want a situation where when it becomes a runoff, you don't know who to choose. However, when it becomes a runoff involving you, your expectation is that now people should coalesce around an opposition. I don't understand that. So if you don't want to answer hypothetical, don't expect me to answer hypothetical.
Okay, I didn't say that.
Can I answer that question?
But the question has been answered by the candidate himself. Go ahead.
If it was a frog running against the CDC, I'm voting for that frog. Simple. No politics here. If it's a cockroach running against the CDC, I'm supporting that cockroach.
Listen,
you know what, Joel? Welcome back.
I know. Welcome back, Joel. Listen, folks. Let us take a few calls, and the number to call is 267-248-95 248-5295, right? Okay, we have a caller in line. Hello, I believe he's from Minnesota. Elvis, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Garley, and hello to the panelists. Quickly, I want to say, you know, I'm no ANC supporter, but I would defend the brother on one issue. When we talk about third world and first world countries, we all know it's talking about the social and industrialization of those countries relative to the countries that are considered third world. A lot of us look to come to the United States because of the economic opportunities, the technological advances that we have in this country compared to our own. So I don't think he's saying that the people in Liberia, you know, are less than human beings because they live in third world countries. I think every continent have some third world countries in them, except maybe North America.
Thank you.
Yeah. But let me make my point quickly. I just want to clarify that. Okay. For Mr. Queer, I don't know how to pronounce his name, even though in my own children. But I will give you advice. I don't think I'm making fun of you. I'm giving you some objective criticism here. I think if you speak in the Liberian parlance, you know, something that people can understand, maybe you revert back to your Liberian way of talking. You're a smart guy. But it's hard when you're talking. It's like you're counting your words, trying to speak the series. And sometimes you don't come across as fluid as you should in terms of defending something. But lastly, be on the attack, be on the front foot. Don't come here and be defending Cummings. That's not a winning strategy. Don't sit there and let these guys ask you a bunch of questions. Come and proliferate the things that you want to say about Cummings and to sell your candidates. Don't come on these platforms taking 99 questions. They'll always put you in a booby trap.
Thank you.
It's hard to get out of. So I'll give you that advice. But
Thank you. Thank you. We'll also have a 612 number. Tell us your name, please.
Yeah, I'm Terry calling from Minnesota.
Welcome to the show. Go ahead and ask your question.
I should ask a question or I wanted to make a comment.
Okay. In 1 minute, please. Go ahead and make a comment.
Yeah, actually, the comment will go to the guy who, from the ANC that was being questioned. Actually, my comment is that I think he did answer the question. And in my mind, he's trying to say that they're either going to vote for Cummings or George Weah. And I think that is the ANC stand, which is that detrimental to our country. That alone tells you the mindset of Mr. Cummings. No wonder why people say ANC is part of CDC. So, I think that is not good enough and healthy for our country's success in the future. Not because it is not your guy, so nobody else should take it. That is a signal of greed and selfishness, and I don't think that is healthy for our democracy.
Thank you.
Especially during this critical time in Liberia.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Peter, we have come to closing statements now, but I want you to respond to the last caller. But before you do that, in 2017, following the first round, before then, they all gathered in Ganta City that whoever goes in the runner-up do not vote for the ruling establishment. And in this case, Joseph Boyka was seen as the incumbent. So when they went to the second round, Cummins, Bronskin, may his soul rest in peace, they said, let the voters decide for themselves. When they were on paper saying that whoever goes against the incumbent, we will support. And in this case, they did not do George Weah justice. Are we looking at the same thing that happened in October?
Well, here's how I answer that question. So let me save that for last. First thing I wanted to address before we left, subsistence farming. Whenever you have subsistence farming, that just means people, regular household doing farms to sustain themselves. What this brother just said, Brother Addy just said, was Joseph Boyka owns land and people make farm on them. That's pretty much what he just told you. If Joseph Boyka's expertise and his passion was farming, we would have hundreds and hundreds of pictures of this man working on farms, showing them things he's done on farms. They can't show that because that's not true. It's fake. I wanted to address that. Second thing, someone talk about how I talk. The way I talk is not pretentious, is not trying to speak whatever you call series. I'm going to be my very best self, my truest self. This is how I speak all day, every day. When I go to Liberia, which I do often, I just came back from Liberia a couple of months ago, my third time in the last year. I've gone to the Intellectual Center. I post pictures so you can see me in Carey Street. And here's one of the comments that I got at the end, and this stays with me, from one of the young folks. After speaking for a couple of hours, taking questions for another 40 minutes, he was one of the last people to stand up. He said, a lot of people come here and they try to change the way they talk. They try to relate to us, and we can see right through it. We can see right through it. He said that in front of a packed house. He said, I appreciate you for just speaking your regular self. And that's what I'm going to continue to do. Anyone who knows me, I'm always going to be my truest self. I'm not trying to sound like anything or anybody. I'm just going to be who I am. If I was stuck in Sierra Leone, I would speak like a Sierra Leonean. Same thing with Ghana, same thing with London. The country that I got forced to run to, the war that the people from UP brought, this is why I talk the way I talk. And I'm not changing for nobody.
Okay.
Third thing, let me address the questions. We're going to vote. We're going to vote for We Are, is what someone just said. I never said anything close to that. I don't know where that, again, I know where it's coming from because it's a political talking point. We said, Mr. Cummings has said ad nauseum, we'll vote for whoever's in the opposition. So when we talk about, which brings me to the Ganta thing. When it goes to the end of the election and Mr. Cummings says, I'll let the voters decide who he support, all depends how you count and vote, how you're defining the term support. Because Mr. Cummings supported Mr. Boyka with his money in the second round, and he personally voted for Mr. Boyka and had meetings about it and told him about that. So what support do you want? You want him to galvanize other people? He didn't do that. because a lot of things transpire during the election on Mr. Boyka's behalf. However, Mr. Cummings still give his hard-earned dollars to Mr. Boyka. That's support enough, in my opinion.
Okay, I will take this last caller and then we'll work our way around the room. Hello, caller. Tell us your name.
My name is. Are you talking to me?
Yes, sir.
My name is Reverend Sherman.
Okay, Reverend Sherman.
I just want to encourage a brother over there who is sitting in for Cummings. Let him see the plight of the Liberian people. And he shouldn't take it for granted. He should know that the people are suffering. George Weah have been over there for almost 6 years. He has not done anything. If he would say that, in fact, he's not seeing anything straight. I don't know why people should behave like this, because you having access to full or opportunity and others are suffering. You are not considering the plight of the Liberian people. Look at the key affected populations in the nation. I just want to, encourage you that you should try think twice.
Thank you, Reverend. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
Think twice about what?
I don't know what he's trying to say. Idatu's had it as we close tonight.
Well, Mr. Dali got to get clarification. What he's talking about?
Well, you said more think twice.
Well, contextually, I think I get where he was going, because oftentimes, my friend and brother, when he came on the show, instead of the focus being George Weah, and let's have a substantive conversation around policies, he immediately started attacking Joseph Boyka in terms of his personality, among several other things. So people can certainly understand that, when I mention opposition unity, it's listen, we come on the show. It's one thing to get George Weah from the race in the first round. Let's beat him, okay, resoundingly in the first round. And second round, let that competition be between ANC and Joseph Boyka. All right, we're having a conversation, but no, your idea is let's get Boyka from the race by attempting to destroy him with false information. In fact, the farming thing that he was talking about is 127 acres, 127.33 acre land in Bomi, where he's helping people to grow food. Joseph Boyka is not the president of Liberia to have proliferation of farms all over the country. Should he steal government money and be parading it and claim that he has farms? No, that's why integrity matters. And hence, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf would not choose him, would not support him, because he's a man of integrity. It was not by coincidence when he said he was sidelined. He was sidelined because he stood for principles. He wanted Liberia's greater good, and he could do more. And in my personal conversation with Mr. Cummings in a town hall meeting, when I asked him during COVID via Zoom, in what other capacity can you serve Liberia? Mr. Cummings said to me personally, Reverend Ade, I can serve Liberia in any other capacity. He paused and came back to me and said, but not as vice president. And that is fine. That's his political choice.
Idatu's, the data from 2017 is not the same data in 2023. Mr. Correa visited Liberia 3 times in a year. Maybe he sees something that you don't see. The last time you were in Liberia was the 2012, 2013. I mean, the dynamic has changed, Idatu's.
All right, so Ashford year is the miscalculation. There is this tendency that people saying, oh, because you're not in Liberia, you don't understand the political temperature of Liberia. That's not true. Henry Costa sat right behind his microphone and he commanded a whole group of people in Liberia to go move a girl to a rescue place. The fact remains, I do have operations in Liberia, and you know that. I'm on the phone every day. I'm talking to people. I have operations in Liberia. So going in Liberia on the ground, you and I know we have friends who have been on the ground, who have called us on the FDE platform and spoke to Liberians by and large all over. And the resounding name that you hear in this race is between Joseph Boyka and George Weah. And that is why George Weah cannot run in his own name. He has to be putting people forth under the disguise of independent candidate, because his legacy speaks for itself. Liberians are tired. We've become beggars in our own country. I know how much money I'm spending to support missions in Liberia. As a Liberian, I understand the plight of the Liberian people, not to mention the fact that people themselves are going through it. Our young boys and girls are languishing in the street from poor quality education. underemployment, youth endangerment, drug proliferation by this government. And that is why we need someone to come and rescue this country in the person of Joseph and Jeremiah. This is the reality and the plight of the Liberian people. So, you know, I love Mr. Cummings. I think he's a very fine gentleman. I do not do gutter politics, but I will definitely compare resumes in terms of experience and expertise. George Weah has filled Liberia, and it is my hope that Mr. Cummings will join this campaign. Let's win together, and he can go to finance ministry.
You know what,
Joel? Yeah, come in.
So listen, you know, the pastor said earlier that, you know, Joseph Boyka is a businessman, or he got a business degree or something. I believe that's what he
said.
Change
his title. You don't be calling him pastor. You see the man that was added because the man a big politician now. So yeah, the pastor name is small.
Okay. Okay. The doctor said that, you know, both people got business degree. I believe that's what he said. But I'm confused because he keeps, you know, you can't have it both ways, the doctors. You can't say on the one hand, he was in the closet for 12 years. That's where he got his experience from. I don't believe it makes no sense to me. You said he did nothing as VP. So where did he get this experience? Furthermore, if he is this businessman you're saying, he's a very poor businessman. He doesn't seem to make good decisions, any business decisions. Because from what you telling me, if you compare both of their resumes, Joseph Boyka and Alexander Cummings have acquired way more wealth from his businesses than Boyka. So what has Boyka done? And you know, I've been on this show for a little bit now.
Let me answer that for you.
I'm not a Boyka fan. I'm not a Cummings fan, but I would have loved to see the country united under that one.
I think you were leaning towards Cummings.
Cummings, you know, like I said before, Cummings is he's a very aloof candidate. He's not relatable. He doesn't connect with people, and that's why if picking this girl, you know, it may help him within that area. But I don't believe Cummings.
Yeah, go ahead. Okay.
But I stand with Cummings. I empathize with Cummings because the treatment he's getting is the same treatment you and I would get. We've been living in America now for quite a while. If we go to Liberia, you know, that's the first thing I'll tell you, my man. The mosquito ain't drinking your blood yet, or you can't go in the country and do nothing because the mosquito now are the biggest voters. You know, so they would treat all of us like that.
Let me allow you that is the response, and we'll go to Dr. Fisk.
You know, wealth and its acquisition is not just the acquisition of money for your personal aggrandizement. We have a vice president who has dedicated his life to humanity, building cathedrals in the lives of Liberians.
You can't have it both ways.
Let me finish. I would like to refer you to the Joseph Boyka's Foundation. I'd like to refer you to the school in Lofa that he built. When yesteryears, when Mr. Cummings was no longer on the scene, what he's trying to do now to become president of Liberia, Joseph Boyka was doing that all his life, changing lives of the Liberian people. In your country, Liberia, if this man was so inept, incompetent, why would 4 presidents in the history of your country choose him to serve? Let me finish.
Please allow him to plan.
That is not true. He served in capacities in government, not as running mate. No. Honor William R. Talbot, honor Dr. Sawyer, honor Samuel K. Doe, honor Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Answer you.
It is no. I'm answering you, my brother.
It
is because he brought something to the table in the context of education and experience. And you, as a civil servant, when you are working in any country, Liberia became an iconic, emblematic representation of agriculture. When we took the first chairmanship of WADA, Liberia presided as the first chairman of the West African Rice Development Association. We became an icon, and Joseph Boyka was the first chairman of that reality. Make no mistake, we were exporting coffee and cocoa under Joseph Boyka. Make no mistake, you were growing more country rice.
Where's your proof? Where's your proof of all of this? Where's your proof? Other than just talking, where's your proof?
Well,
show me the proof.
Listen to me. when you serve in government as a civil servant, you make contribution not on a magnanimous skill. He demonstrated that. Go and read about him. That's what I'm telling you. And he said, "Tell me a proof."
Yeah.
Go to Joseph Ima Foundation. Go look at his contribution to Liberia. So Talbot just took him because he was what? Because of relationship. He wasn't running with William R. Talbot. He wasn't running with Amos Sawyer. The ANC folks attempted to spread lies that he was fired for corruption. The late Dr. Amos Sawyer came out and he clarified that. He said that is a blatant lie. The tip is on YouTube. Stop making up stuff. I want to discuss substantive issue, and that is why with his and that is why he, as a technocrat,
then you, Mrs.
I am landing 30 seconds. I'm landing 30 seconds. And that is why for Liberia to become self-sufficient, we need someone who has the expertise in agriculture. And hence Joseph Boyka, first and foremost priority is to make Liberia self-sufficient. Food security is our reality. Roads development, education, healthcare. And we want Liberia to be a nation that all of us can be proud of today or tomorrow, and not keep going to Ghana for vacation, not keep going to the Caribbean for vacation, but rather we can go back to our country called Liberia and be proud to say we are Liberians because of his effort and his vision to change the trajectory of our country and make it a wholesome functioning society in the world of poverty.
Dr. Fisk.
My wrap up is this. I hope the coach will take it back to the ANC leaders that this is a serious platform and we need the leaders of these, and Reverend Adi, that we need the leaders themselves to come and speak to our audience. Okay, our audience want to know, because Mr. Kwewi have left more questions than answers, especially when it comes to who the ANC is going to be leaning towards if there's a runoff between George Weah and Joseph Boyka. Okay, that's number one. Number two, let me set a scenario, a hypothetical scenario. If I was running to be president of Liberia, the first thing I would do is to have on my agenda to make rice a national security commodity. And then I'm going to open a Ministry of Factories and Industries to make sure that within 3 years' time, we phase rice out of importation. There will be no importation of rice from India and China, because it's going to affect the currency of Liberia. It's going to affect movement of people away from Monrovia. It's going to decongest the country. It's going to create massive job employment and all of these things. And I've not heard any of the leaders speak to those issues. All of them talk about agriculture. Liberia has been an agricultural nation for a long time. What Liberia has not been is an industrial nation. The West had industrialization epochs ago, okay? And Africa is yet to encounter that. The importance of that is that it leads to massive production, especially agro-industry. So it's not about growing farms. How many factories are there in Liberia? Not many. When Mr. Cummings talked about factories, he referenced Firestone. And finally, when Western countries want to talk about poor countries with Black people, they use the word third world. That was the driving theme of my thesis. That's what I was trying to find out when I was doing a master's in communication, to understand how they use it, how they have weaponized that word to an extent that even our leaders, because they understand that these people see predominantly African nations as third world. So to an extent, they are not taken seriously. So these leaders go, and when they come to their own people, treat their own people like animals, because they know the rest of the world, they are not really concerned about the third world. If you follow history, you see that third world meant non-aligned. And even China was third world. But right now you call China third world. Even was third world, but you call China third world, people see you as being crazy. Because why? That word has been re-engineered prejudicially to refer to predominantly Black people and people of color. So it's one thing to say nations are poor. It's one thing to say nations are underdeveloped. But when you use the word third world to describe them, you go one step further. You're not just describing the social condition, the economic condition. To some extent, you are discussing the mindset of people, and that's wrong. And when you come with that mindset, you would definitely not see your people as equal and not treat them as such. So it was wonderful to have you on.
I will go to Mrs. Roberts, Joel, and then our guest will have the last word tonight before we go home. So, Mrs. Roberts.
We're doing our closing statements.
Yes.
Yes. Well, in closing, I want to say thank you to Peter for coming, Coach Peter. While it's true, there were some questions put before him, but he is not the standard bearer.
Correct.
So he came to maybe enlighten us on some of the issues. Again, I wasn't on the beginning of the show, but to the point that Pastor Addy made regarding Vice President Boycott being, in so many governments, that makes him more of a qualified person. I would like to disagree in terms of our current leaders in the legislature. We have Vonnie Sherman, who's been there under what's the gentleman, Taylor, Mrs. Sirleaf, and current he's been sanctioned. So I don't think that's a qualification, especially with our Liberian policy, where people are just lingering and doing what they can do for themselves. What impact has he made on our country is what we want to know. And to say to Elvis that called regarding Mr. Query's tune and talking Siri, these are the issues that we have. This is what currently Mr. Cummings is facing because he lives in the West. We're all fortunate where some of us can go back and forth depending on where we are and change our tone, but that doesn't eliminate anybody's argument. It is what he's saying that you should pay attention to. So I wanted to say we need to stop this where we are all putting people in this box. Most of us, as stated by Peter, came here. Well, for me, I will speak for myself. I didn't come here running from war, but however, I came for opportunity, and God has blessed me where I can do both. But for someone to tell me when I come to my homeland, my native land, I don't speak this way, I sound this way, I think it's a disservice because we have so much to give, and we should stop, like Martin Luther King said, stop judging people by the tone of their voice and rather by the substance of what they bring to the table. I thank you.
What did you say?
We will go to Joel, then conclude with Coach Keith.
Yeah, I agree with Ms. Brooks Robert. I think that whole somebody been in government for since 19 that should actually be a disqualifier, because there is no politician in Liberia that I can say I'm proud of. This person have done so great, So that should be an absolute disqualifier. And I mean, furthermore, they're saying this man is so qualified. They don't even think he should even run. He should be he should sit home until he gets elected. So it makes no sense to me. It looked like they're trying to put him back in the closet. And for me, that's the fear. If he's not running his own campaign, who's running his campaign? And I'm speaking of Joseph Boyka. But Coach, thanks for coming on the show. I mean, listen, you got to fix the Siri thing, man. You just got to fix that thing. Just
the coach just told you he went to Liberia. All right?
And the man tongue okra tongue.
They never had problem with him.
The man got too much okra in his tongue.
But my man, look, Ashford, don't mind you. He is against serious.
Exactly. Your leader, Congo Crown Board, man. Congo Crown Board, please give away your closing statement. Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Well, guys, thanks for having me. It was a pleasure. I think I can do the colloquy too, but whenever I'm at my best, I'm just talking. But thanks for having me. A few things I wanted to address before I go. I never mentioned Joseph Boykott's personality. I don't know where that's coming from. Why would you even say that, Dr. Fitz? And I'll be at the mercy of the listening audience to review and see if I ever mention his personality. If there's some relevant,
if Dr. Fitz said that though,
then it was probably Addy. I apologize.
Yeah, Addy is the only man for that feel that.
Yeah, that was just out of left field, like most things that UP people believe in. So I didn't say that. Ellen chose Boycott, like many other presidents chose Boycott because of tribe. We all know that. She neglected to choose him to support him because he was inept to lead the country, not for any other reason. Not because he was just such a standout guy. Food security is top of Mr. Cummings' list. And I wish we had a time to go into how we're going to use agriculture, knowing that Western nations are into the Amber Box, which is the World Trade Organization box that sanctions nations based on how much to support their farmers. But we can talk about that another time. And we can talk about it on another platform. We can post it on Facebook so other people, let's debate that. So the purpose here is to infuse money into the country. How will you do that? So yes, we can do subsistence farming like Mr. Boyka is doing. However, we need to find a way to infuse money into our country. How do you use agriculture to do that? That's what we're talking about. I would challenge these gentlemen to please tell me one signature accomplishment or idea of Mr. Boycott that have helped the Liberian people. Just one signature idea that he put forth to a president that he served with. By the way, Doe fired him. That has helped Liberia. Job creation, expertise. If his expertise is agriculture, how is it that he's not? You just press me. You two just press me on using third world as a term. His expertise in agriculture. Tell me the nuanced agriculture, anything that Mr. Boycott has ever said to the public. Okay. Last thing. What does Mr. Boycott know? I've asked this question over and over again. You still have not given me one specific thing. Because Mr. Boycott served in government, what is one thing he knows, a couple of things he knows, that only he knows because he served, that he knows better than Mr. Cummings because he's serving government, that has helped or will help create jobs and fight corruption? I've asked that over and over again.
Thank you. Thank you. I know. Thank you, Kurt. And we'll be looking forward to seeing you some other time. Reverend Idatus added. We'll close in the prayer. I know he'll put a little spin before he prays. So, Reverend Added, please send us home tonight.
Father, we thank you tonight for having our brother on. We thank you, Lord, that in spite of our human wisdom and limited arguments, you remain the God who sees the future. And though we argue here tonight, debating issues, we pray that you will give us a leader after your own heart. And we say thank you for that leader who is more passionate about the country, who puts you first, where Liberia can be a nation of Liberians being proud of, where your children, oh God, that are your precious gift, can be proud to enjoy quality education, food security, good health care, and a beautiful nation. Bring us together as one people with one destiny, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, where love reigns supreme and hate will no longer be a foundation, or tribalism will no longer be a wedge of divide, but our sense of patriotism will unite us beyond our diversity. we can love one another and put Liberia first in everything we do. In Jesus' name, amen.
I said, listen. The pastor can be praying for Joseph Boyka here. This thing sounds like a political prayer.
How is it a political prayer?
You hear the man's speech? I seen speech me talking.
No, I mean
you,
the president that will love the country, that will be God fearing, could be Cummings, could be George Weah, you know.
Yeah. So I wish he would incorporate what Boycott knows that Cummings wouldn't know in the prayer.
Good night. Thank you.
Well, folks, I'm afraid that's all the time we'll have to be with you. God willing, we'll be back.
Nice seeing you, man.
Same time, same place. Peter, my man. We'll see you some other time. Until then, man, tough times don't last, tough people do. The height of a man is never known until he rises. And in the words of Michael Bobby Bull, when you see crawfish coming from underneath the water and see the crocodile here sweating, don't say that lie. Adrajo, yours truly, and now you know me, Garley. Have a good night.